A good Wednesday morning to you, and thanks for joining us here on KARE 11 News Now. I'm Alicia Lewis. Happening right now, state leaders are taking their fight to get ICE out of the Twin Cities, straight to the Trump administration. They're accusing the Trump administration of using ICE agents to tamp down free speech, of shielding those same agents from consequences when peaceful protesters are targeted. This all comes one day after the Border Patrol commander at large, Greg Bovino, and President Trump himself defended ICE operations. During this press briefing in Minneapolis, Bovino stressed that ICE is only targeting violent offenders. Some local police leaders say that's not the case. Meantime, President Trump, at his own press conference, admitted ICE officers slip up and even referenced the shooting death of Renee Good.
And, they're going to make mistakes sometimes. ICE is going to be too rough with somebody, or, they're dealing with rough people. They're going to make a mistake. Sometimes it can happen. We feel terribly. I felt horribly when I was told that the young woman who was had the tragedy. It's a tragedy. It's a horrible thing. Everybody would say, ICE would say the same thing.
These are the kinds of individuals this operation focuses on. Individuals who escalate situations and endanger others. Again, our neighbors, our friends, our colleagues, and Ma and Pa America.
If it is happening to our officers, it pains me to think of how many of our community members are falling victim to this every day.
Back in the Twin Cities, Bovino claimed 1,400 undocumented people are in state custody right now. And we spoke to the Department of Corrections commissioner, who argues that figure is closer to 200. Let's take a closer look at Bovino's claims. He said the state has released hundreds of undocumented people with criminal records from jail without ever telling ICE. The head of Minnesota's Department of Corrections, Paul Schnell, said that's not true and that state law requires them to notify ICE when someone isn't a U.S. citizen.
Here we are trying to work together and collaborate, and yet this information is being put out that's just fundamentally false. And that's why I think we want to make sure that we're trying to correct the record. And trust me, if there was a human error made on our part, we're going to own that, address it, fix it, figure out what happened. But to date, we have not found a single instant of that.
Schnell says it released 84 people with immigration holds to ICE last year, notifying them in advance and in some cases helping facilitate their transfers. Meantime, some Minnesota Democrats are facing subpoenas from the Department of Justice. Megan McPherson has the details.
Hey, good morning. The Department of Justice is accusing Minnesota leaders of interfering with federal immigration enforcement, pointing to public statements made by top state officials. But the state's top Democrats say that the Trump administration is engaging in political theater and called the subpoenas an intimidation tactic. The offices of Governor Walz, Twin Cities mayors Jacob Frey and Kali Herr, and Attorney General Keith Ellison confirming their offices received federal subpoenas. Hennepin and Ramsey counties tell us they also received subpoenas. A copy of one of those documents shared with us by Mayor Frey's office shows the DOJ is ordering officials to share all records from the past year relating to immigration enforcement. David Schultz is a political science and law professor at Hamline University. He says there's a clear legal distinction between non-cooperation and interference, and Minnesota has no legal obligation to assist federal immigration enforcement.
Some of this may be a fishing expedition either to see if they can find something, or it could just be an outright effort to try to intimidate or perhaps bully local officials and state officials.
Both Governor Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey have been outspoken critics of federal agents operating in Minnesota. And now federal officials claim that rhetoric may have crossed the line and interfered with immigration enforcement. Governor Walz is pushing back, though, responding to the subpoenas by saying Minnesota, quote, will not be drawn into political theater. And our newsroom has also learned in the last few hours that Vice President J.D. Vance is heading to the Twin Cities. A source tells NBC News that Vance is expected to arrive tomorrow for a roundtable discussion with local leaders and community members. So far, though, there is no word on who will take part or what else is planned during that visit.
Megan, thanks. Well, happening this afternoon, St. Paul City Council members will call on Governor Walz to pass an eviction moratorium through an executive order. Council members say the order would help keep families in their homes, protecting them from ICE. The Minneapolis City Council unanimously passed a similar resolution just last week. The governor has not yet responded. Well, happening today at the state capitol, lawmakers are speaking out in support of Friday's Ice Out of Minnesota Day of Action. Groups are calling for a day of no work, no school, and no shopping. This comes one day after students and parents spoke out about the fear that they say the current ICE immigration enforcement is causing in Minnesota schools. They shared their experiences about schools being closed and classmates staying home out of fear of possibly being detained. While praising the strength and resilience of Minnesotans, they pushed for federal agents to leave the state.
As a parent, it was heartbreaking to have to explain to my son this week that it wasn't safe for him to walk the few blocks home from school to his friend's house. Instead of talking about his upcoming spelling bee, we've been talking about why some of his classmates aren't in school right now.
The group also pushing for people to take part in Friday's economic blackout. This morning, a major visa freeze is now in effect, suspending immigrant visa processing from 75 countries, including Somalia, Russia, and Laos. The State Department says that no immigrant visas are being revoked, saying that this only puts a pause on immigrant visa applications. The Trump administration's accusing migrants from these, quote, high-risk countries of abusing the American welfare system. The freeze does not apply to tourist visas. Today, the state's Fraud Prevention and Agency Oversight Committee is meeting to take a closer look at how the state's treasury has been managed. It comes less than a day after Congressman Tom Emmer introduced a new bill in Washington, D.C. in response to fraud schemes back here in Minnesota. The Stop Citizenship Abuse and Misrepresentation Act, or the SCAM Act, would create a path to denaturalize U.S. citizens who are convicted of fraud and other crimes. Those include joining a foreign terrorist group or any aggravated felony convictions. The bill is backed by about 40 other Republicans in the House, including Minnesota's entire Republican delegation. President Trump is in Davos, Switzerland this morning and is addressing the World Economic Forum, coming face to face with many of the European leaders frustrated by his push to take control of Greenland and tariff allies that are opposed. Before taking off, though, the president addressed those tensions in a wide-ranging press briefing marking 1 year into his second term. NBC's Alice Barr has the details from Washington.
Hi there. President Trump joins the World Economic Forum in progress, and in speeches so far, including from close allies France and Canada, we've seen pushback against the president's plans for Greenland. President Trump today addressing the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, arriving behind schedule after a minor electrical issue with Air Force One. The president heading into diplomatic turbulence over his push to take control of Greenland, a strategically important Danish territory that he argues is too vulnerable to threats from China and Russia.
How far are you willing to go to acquire Greenland?
You'll find out.
Many European leaders will be in Davos as they weigh countermeasures to President Trump's threatened tariffs on Denmark and 7 other allies that oppose his efforts to buy Greenland.
We have no interest in picking a fight, but we will hold our ground.
Among the European Union's tools to respond, what's known as the trade bazooka that could ban U.S. goods from European markets. President Trump saying in a new interview he would match any EU actions.
And it's going to go ricocheting backward, but we're not looking at that. We'll probably be able to work something out.
A trade war with the European Union, America's largest trading bloc, would have wide-ranging economic effects and likely price increases here at home when Americans are already feeling the pinch. All as the president defended the state of the economy 1 year into his second term.
Gasoline prices have come per gallon way down. When that happens, everything else comes down.
Also pointing to stock market record highs, though markets plunged Tuesday amid the trade tensions. While in Davos, President Trump is also set to join a signing ceremony for his Board of Peace to oversee the reconstruction of Gaza. Overnight, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu confirmed he's among the world leaders joining the board, while allies voiced concerns the board's expanding mission beyond Gaza could rival the United Nations. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
Let's take you live from our nation's capital, where tomorrow House lawmakers will vote on a massive funding bill to avoid a government shutdown. The more than 1,000-page bill includes money for the Defense Department, Health and Human Services, and Homeland Security. Experts say the DHS portion will likely be a point of contention for Democrats after an ICE agent shot and killed Renee Good in Minneapolis earlier this month. The package would keep ICE funding essentially flat at $10 billion for the rest of the fiscal year. GOP leaders say they'll hold a separate vote on the Homeland Security part of the package to give Democrats the opportunity to oppose it without shutting down the government. New overnight, after months of debate, Robbinsdale area schools has approved their final deficit plan to fix a $20 million budget error. This includes closing 2 elementary schools, 1 middle school, and eliminating a middle school magnet program. The board also voted on school boundaries to move students into those schools. Other changes and cuts are expected. Hey, stick with us. More news and weather coming up after the break.